I'm a bit of a stubborn individual. I really don't know how my wife puts up with me. I think this is something in the Pictish character, or perhaps a Scottish character. I'll give you a perfect example of this. Back in the 7th century, when the Roman Catholic Church was trying to assert its ascendancy over the Celtic Church, the Roman envoy at the Synod of Whitby said, "The only people stubborn enough to be in complete disagreement with the whole world are those Scots and their obstinate allies, the Picts and the Britons, who live at 2 islands at the ends of the ocean."
But the Picts may have exited the history of Scotland at an earlier date, had it not been for a warrior king, centuries before Robert the Bruce and Sir William Wallace. In 685, King Egfrith, son of Oswiu of Northumbria, led an army north to teach the Pictish king Brud mac Darail a lesson in cross-border diplomacy. What took place near Letham in Angus, Dunachan, was not according to Egfrith's game plan. An Irish cleric, Rhaegal of Bencaur, writes, "This day Brud fights a battle for the heritage of his grandfather. Unless the Son of God wills it otherwise, he will die in it. This day the son of Oswiu has been struck down in a battle against blue swords. Although he has spoken penitence, it is penitence too late. This day the son of Oswiu has been struck down. He who drank the black ale. Christ heard our supplications. They spared Brud the brave." There is not a proud Scot on the planet who does not owe a debt to this king and his victory. That, had the Northumbrians taken Pictland into their ownership, a free Scotland would not have come into existence later in the time of Kenneth MacAlpin.
It annoys me that the Picts are portrayed as a savage tribal people, when the opposite is obviously the case. For example, after the Battle of Dunachan Hill, when King Brady's victorious patriots had beaten the English invaders, well, Northumbrian English invaders if you like, the body of King Egfrith was taken to Iona for a royal burial. How different 800 years later, when the body of King James IV, King of Scots, after the Battle of Flodden, was urinated on by the English soldiers. He didn't get a burial in Iona. His body was embalmed, taken south, and it was discovered many years later in an attic amongst timber and rubbish, and the head had actually been severed from the body. Yes, I am a Scottish nationalist. I make no bones about it. I love my country, and I think we should be independent like Sweden, Denmark, Norway. I think in many ways the Scots appear to have been filleted. I can't understand why they won't vote for independence. It seems to me the most natural thing in the world for any people. I'm sure the Picts believe in independence, and the early Scots that came here. They call me a separatist, the Unionists do, like it's some kind of bad word. Well, I've got a couple of words for them as well. I call them fearties. I call them creeps. I call them crawlers. I call them lapdogs. And I call them lickspittles.
So what became of the Picts? Where are their influences? Their kin? The answer is that their blood still surges in limbs, young and old in every part of the world, that these people were assimilated into modern Scotland, and that this country, with all its stubbornness and determination, its hand on heart and sense of kinship, possibly has its foundations in Pictish times, and for that, all Scotsmen should be grateful.
People sometimes ask me how old the Scottish culture is. I'm going to show you something. This is a Highlander's dirk. This part here in Scottish Gaelic is called the lawn for the blade. L-A-N-N. This word lawn also describes a fish's scale. Now you ask yourself, how can the same word lawn describe two entirely different things? Now look at this. This is a piece of flint which I found hill walking about a couple of years ago. According to the experts, this piece of flint is man-made. It's got an edge. It's called a flint scraper, and it's between 3,000 and 6,000 years old. If you look at this piece of flint, you'll see that it is identical to a fish's scale. And you'll recall that I said the word for a fish's scale in Gaelic was the same as a blade, lawn. This gives you an idea just how old our culture is. The Scottish culture is not 100 or 200 years old. It's not 1,000 years old. The Scottish culture is thousands of years old. And it is from this culture that I draw my inspiration. This is where my roots are. My foundations of stone.